We are going live. Hello, Oliver and Joshua. We are live. We are live.
Yes,
We are going
please.
to start.
Yes, please.
Okay. Good afternoon to us all. Welcome
Good
to the Real
afternoon.
Chat. Yeah, welcome to the Real Chat. I'm your host, Mrs. Mutekanga. Thank you so much for joining in. During our last session, we talked about the struggles and upheavals in abusive relationships and marriages. In case you missed it out, you can scroll down on the page and then you will get to know what we talked about and how the discussion was so interactive and beneficial to us all. So, this afternoon, I have our guests, two of them already in the studios as we wait for others to join in, of course. Our guest speaker is already with us, and he is Mr. Joshua Talemwa. He is the administration manager at Democratic Governance Facility. Thank you, Joshua, for honoring our invitation and for joining us. Say hello to the viewers, please.
Thank you, Irene, for the invitation, and I'm privileged to be part of this presentation today. And I'm most privileged to have met you and Olive and the rest of the viewers and the listeners. Good afternoon.
Okay, good afternoon to you, Joshua. Our panelists, Miss Oliver Baliama, is already in the studios. Olive, say hello to the viewers. Olive.
Good afternoon, everyone. To join you again today on a new topic. I hope we have a meaningful discussion and thank us from wherever you are. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much again to our viewers. Thank you for joining.
Good afternoon.
And a good afternoon to you, Olive. Well, our topic this afternoon is the youth and drug abuse. Like I've said before, teenagers or the youth experience a lot of changes as they are growing up, and sometimes it becomes difficult for parents and friends to actually find out. And most of the times when it is with drug abuse, we find out when it is even already too late, when they are already addicted. So this afternoon, that's what we are going to be discussing. And I believe we are going to learn something from all that we are going to talk about. So, again, thank you so much. It is an interactive discussion. Send in your comments. Send in your comments. Send in your comments, and you can join the discussion right in the comment box. Feel free. We are going to respond to every question that comes in, and we are going to look at every comment that comes in. And this is a platform for us, the youth, to talk about the things or the issues that affect us as the youth. Thank you once again for joining in, and let's go for it. I will allow our guest speaker to help us understand whether this is actually a problem we are supposed to be talking about now, or whether actually it is an issue that we are supposed to be discussing right now. Over to you, Joshua.
Yes, please. Thank you so much, Irene, for the brief introduction. To the rest of the viewers and listeners who are joining in, my name is Talemwa Joshua once again, and I work with the Democratic Governance Facility as the administrative manager. And I'm privileged to be part of this show and this presentation today. And as DGF, what we do, DGF is a pool for the 5 development partners. Basically, that is Australia, Denmark, Ireland, and Netherlands, Norway, and Sweden. They come together, form a pool or a fund on how to help citizens. And we are aiming at achieving a particular vision where Uganda citizens are empowered to engage in democratic processes and governances and where the citizens uphold their rights. We have very many interventions that we work in or under, and much of the information can be found on our website. I'm not here to discuss about TGF, but it's where I'm privileged to be working at the moment. And I hope I'm clear to everyone who is listening. For confirmation, Eileen, you can respond to that so that we can proceed. Am I clear to everyone?
Yes, please, you're very clear. You're very, very clear.
Good, thank you so much.
Yes, you are.
Good, good. Now, for so
Okay.
long time, there was me and nobody, just me and my body. Me was composed of stories, of cravings, of strivings, of desire for the future. Me was always trying to be an outcome of any violent past. But the separation that had already occurred between me and my body was a pretty significant outcome. Me was always trying to become something, somebody. Me only existed in trying. My body was often in the way. I don't know if this makes sense to some of us, but as I open this introduction, I want to relate this to most of the youth in this country. There's always me when what you want to achieve, what you're striving for, what you're craving for, then what the reality comes in as your body, what it demands. And most of the youth have fallen victims of this contrast between the two. In this afternoon, I want us to be open to the reality that drug abuse and substance abuse is real in Uganda. Not only in Uganda, in East Africa, not only in East Africa, but in the whole world, as statistics will be also revealing to us. I want to put it clear that drug abuse and substance abuse is one of the biggest challenges our time is facing, especially, but not limited to the youth, the whole country, amongst the students, amongst the professionals, amongst the celebrities, not only those, but also the leaders, people in businesses, on streets, those who are unemployed, those who are living on the streets and have nowhere to stay. It is much, much relevant, and we need to wake up to this reality. Many authors, many people have come up with this to define what drug abuse is and what addictions are. There are so many definitions that can come up. But however, we can define addiction as a chronic repulse disorder, which is characterized by drug seeking and use of despite adverse consequences or measures. In other words, there is a replacement by the brain of a particular artificial item or drug, which I may refer as a drug, in this guise of creating the conducive atmosphere. It appeals in so many ways. And Uganda, like any other country in East Africa region, is increasingly faced with this drug and abuse substance problem. In other words, the consumption of these drugs is gaining prominence over time. And like I said, much especially within the youth. Children of ministers have been victims. Doctors themselves have been victims. Pastors have been victims. Those who have been addicted and have failed to be rehabilitated are wasting away within our country. And it's high time we woke up to the reality that this is true as we look into the statistics in our preceding discussions. It is extremely dangerous. And as I begin with, like I will end with, drug addiction and abuse is extremely dangerous. It destroys lives and breaks families. And the best way to fight it is through prevention. Ladies and gentlemen, it is on record that in 2013, according to the Global Adult Tobacco, Uganda had 15. And of 2019, it is at around 26% of the deaths in Uganda are respiratory related. In other words, they are the result of drug addicts equivalent 2.6 million people between the age of 15 and 25. They are using tobacco. The use of these drugs as prescribed. Well, before we look into this, we need to look at which drugs are always being used. The so common ones are tobacco, which is always smoked on the streets, everywhere. Even I've seen in offices, people smoke this in parties, in nightclubs, and it is becoming a trend. It's becoming like a showbiz, you know. And then not only that, we also have marijuana. We also have other drugs which can be administered through the injections through the body. Those which can be smoked. We have shisha. There's shisha which is always in those clubs. So quite a number of drugs have come up, as we may continue in our discussion. But it is very important that we wake up to this reality and know that these drugs are real. Drug abuse, drug addict is real in our society, in our country, Uganda. And celebrities have come up to testify. We have quite a number of examples of them that we'll be looking at in our discussion. They have come up to testify of how they've been victims, of how they've been addictions, and they are battling with addictions. Some are still in rehabilitation, some are still in a mental illness hospitals in Utabika, quite a number of them. And most people are on streets, they are still taking these drugs. In Uganda, marijuana is becoming like any other good. When you walk into the slums, people sell them in an open place, and then people pass by, police officers, some of them are clients, chairmen or government officials, some of them just come and buy because they are victims of this. So we need to wake up to this reality and then embark on how best we can overcome this, on how best we can put to an end to drug abuse, especially among the youth. There are very many other factors that may cause this, among which we have curiosity and peer pressure, and also recreational purposes, and creativity, inspiration, especially among the musicians or entertainment industry. Some of them believe that they cannot perform best if they don't have drugs. And when you look at their performances, some of them even, they get surprised after their performance by the nature of the performance they gave out. They believe that, is it me who did that? Like, did I really undress myself? Because they were under the influence of these drugs. So yes, they get the show, they get the cheers, and they like that, but the way of getting it, some of them strongly believe that it has to be through drugs. These drugs have been categorized in various groups, and we have some which are looked at as depressants. These cause depression on the brain faculty. For example, the sleeping pills. These are also drugs. You take them to be small things, but some people are addicted to sleeping pills. They cannot get sleep on their own. And as time goes on, he begins with 3, he begins with 4, he wants a deep sleep, he begins with a whole circuit, and they are so much addicted to this. Some are called stimulants. These cause stimulation of the brain, and they give a rise to alertness and increase burst of the activity. They stimulate the brain, and you find someone is energized to do something. Like I said, also tobacco, alcohol, cocaine, opium, hashish or marijuana, all these are a reality within Ugandan communities. And most people are being affected. Ladies and gentlemen, I want us also to know that in the entertainment industries, some artists have come up and opened up openly. And they're like, we have been victims, like I said before, and they are battling with it, and they are trying to find ways on how best they can improve their lives. Why am I talking about these artists? These artists have a big following, and the majority of them are youth. They are people who are doing things because of whom they follow, whom they believe in. Some want to be musicians, some want to be popular. All these youth with these ambitions, They look at these musicians who are popular and they want to walk in their footsteps, do the things they do so as to become as they are. And eventually they have become victims of this. What does so and so use to become this? Where does he get his money? How? Because when you look at how these drugs are administered, are being distributed within the streets, within the communities, people are getting, some of them is a source of income. They sell them and they are sold expensively. Some of them sell them to earn a living, but eventually the repercussion or the consequence is so big, it affects the young generation, the youth. And most of the youth have been involved and gotten engaged in this. Some of them not knowingly because of peer pressure. Some of them, they are not sure of the effects or the outcomes, but they want to be part of this. And there are also other ways that we will look into as we discuss. But I wanted us to wake up to the reality that drug addiction is real in Uganda and in our communities. Statistics have it that over 2.6 million Ghanaians use marijuana, 2.6. And that number is growing each and every day. Because there is less that is being done. The laws which are put there, they are just a formality. They're not followed out. We haven't seen someone who is being penalized. We haven't seen people being arrested for smoking on streets. We haven't seen people being arrested for taking marijuana when you look in those slums of Chisenyi and elsewhere. We haven't seen laws being very, very active or followed. So, as we continue to discuss, ladies and gentlemen, let us wake up to this reality. I look forward to putting more of the submissions and more of my compliments in the proceeding discussions, but allow me open this to all of us present. Thank you so much, Irene.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joshua, for your submissions. And sincerely speaking, it is drug abuse is one of the things we should really get worried about, and this is one of the things that has left parents actually worried, some crying, some wondering what to do, because most of the times, by the time a parent knows that their child is actually doing drugs, most of the times it's already late and they're already addicted to the drug. And we've seen so many end up in rehab centers, in Butabika, in any other rehab center around. I know they are there and the rehab centers actually full. So this brings me to a question. What could be the signs that a youth is actually doing drugs or is abusing drugs? Over to you, Olive. First unmute.
Sorry.
Unmute your mic.
Is it okay now? Yeah, thank you,
Yes,
Irene.
yes,
Good
it is
afternoon to everyone. Joshua, welcome. Wycliffe, welcome. Allow me to compliment on what Joshua has been saying. I've seen in the comments we have McDonald saying, Joshua, tobacco hasn't driven anybody to the wall, so please let's focus on real drugs that have affected our young generation mentality. Then he also says, Joshua, I think you're not looking at the real root cause of drug use and drug abuse. He goes ahead to actually say your points are not concrete. To add on what Joshua has said, maybe to clarify to McDonald, the issue of drug abuse, it starts small. Yeah, what you forget is there is drug abuse and drug addiction. Yeah, so as Joshua talks about tobacco, he talks about marijuana, he talks about alcohol. These are different drugs. People take up various drugs. You may not see tobacco as a drug, but some people start by chewing tobacco. Yeah, this is abuse of the drug itself. You're abusing the tobacco. Some people start by chewing the tobacco. Before they know it, they are addicted. You see probably with the best scenarios we can use are the ones in our country, Uganda. Is it called Mairunji? Oh, there is that green substance people chew. Eh? Some people take it as harmless, but it starts with those simple acts whereby someone starts by chewing tobacco, chewing Mairunji, chewing Mariana, thinking it's something small. But as time progresses, this becomes an addiction. Yeah. So to back up Joshua, yes, tobacco in your sense may not be a real drug, but this is something which can lead to a drug addiction actually. Yeah. So moving on to Irene's point, the question you said, the signs which show that our teenagers are abusing drugs. Am I still okay? Yeah. So of course, not, most of them won't come out and tell you I'm abusing drugs, I'm using drugs. Eh? But as parents, as family members, you get to notice the changes in some of these people. You get to know these are people you're close to, these are people you're with all the time. So you get to notice these changes. So with drug addicts, with alcoholics, there's some changes which are noticeable to all of us. You can look at the poor hygiene, the smell of smoke. Yeah, for someone taking marijuana and all that, you can smell the drug itself on them. Yeah, because they reach a point where they are so self-confident, they feel you around them, you can't see any of these signs. Yeah, there is the sign of the students, you get the bad grades because they're not concentrating in class. You look at the unusual tiredness, yeah, the change in habits. These are the constant reminders you can pick up on. The diminished personal appearances, avoiding eye contact. So basically, my focus is on the simple changes in your child, yeah, the simple changes in our youth. So parents have to take note, and you can actually go as far as asking your child, "Are you taking drugs?" Yeah. Some of them might give you a straight answer and say yes, but for those who might not, you have options. Yeah, you can actually go ahead and do the drug tests, do the room searches. Yeah, I believe coming together and looking at various ways to address this. But yes, this is a real concern, and what may not seem like drugs to you, it might be a problem to another person, leading to a drug addiction. Back to you, Irene.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Olive. Thank you for your submissions. And for those who are just joining us, it's the Real Chat with Mrs. Mutekanga, and our topic is the youth and drug abuse. And from what she has said, it is true. If you pay close attention to your child, you will actually see those signs, the warning signs that your child is actually doing drugs. So, Wycliffe, you can also tell us what you think about the signs, the warning signs that help us know
Yes.
that actually the youth are doing drugs or abusing drugs. What are those warning signs that parents should actually look out for?
I hope you can hear. Irene, can you hear me?
Please, I can hear you.
Okay, okay. My network is quite a poor one, but I think you asked about the signs. Did you ask about the signs of drug use?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Oh. Apparently we are dealing with something that at least most of us have been exposed to. Perhaps your brother or sister, or maybe your neighbor, or a child you know in your community, and you realize if you've had a child who has been addicted adhering to your words, give them some piece of work, they do it, and then at a later time realize they can't do what you've been telling them. It happens abruptly. You notice it abruptly. So anyway, that is one of the factors. There could be something else, but it's also one of the factors. And then sometimes you realize your child is sleeping a lot. Yeah, it is two-way. This child could be sleeping a lot, or maybe has trouble sleeping at night. You realize they have issues with the drugs. And of course, this is evident. Last year, I was working with Barara. So some of our clients would come and say, the morphine you're giving us blocks sleep, so we sleep too late. So we realized they were not applying this drug the way.
Wycliffe, we seem not to hear you. Hello.
Irene, I think you muted him when you tried to mute us.
No. I think there is a problem with his speaker. Maybe.
With his network?
Wycliffe, are you there? Okay, I think we've lost Wycliffe along the way, but then I think Wycliffe, kindly unmute and we see whether we can hear you.
Can you hear me, Irene?
Yes, I can hear you. You can continue.
You aren't. Oh, you can, yeah?
Yes, we can hear you.
I was saying, you didn't pick my last submission.
Yes.
All right. I said you realize abrupt or swift change of behavior in your child, or maybe someone who is old, and in some other situations they lack sleep. They either lack sleep or sleep too much. Yeah. So that's one of the signs you realize your child is using drugs. And then on top of that, they will try to change their social network. Like they will try to change friendships, perhaps from the good friends they've been with to the other notorious friends that who feed them with drugs or perhaps recommend drugs for them. Yeah. So they start losing the other cream of friends, and they start going in for friends that use drugs. And then sometimes this child will always come late at home. Perhaps you may not be knowing the reason, but you realize when you get closer to her, just like Oliver was submitting, you realize you get that smell. Perhaps if they have used a smelly drug like alcohol or maybe Cuba, yeah, they come late and then realize they could have taken drugs. Back to you, Irene.
Thank you so much, Wycliffe, for your submissions. And like you've said, there are always those warning signs. So to us parents, I think we have to really pay attention to the youth and our teenagers so that we can find out before it is too late, because once it turns into an addiction, then it really becomes hard sometimes. And that's where our children maybe end up in rehabs. They decide to leave school, they lose interest in school and in any other activities that they've been interested in. So, and for those who are just joining us, it's the Real Chat with Mrs. Mutekanga. You will allow me keep holding my earphones because if I don't, then the volume will not be so clear. So, what could be the reasons, really, the reasons why these teens decide to abuse drugs? What could be the reasons that the teens decide to abuse drugs? And I think Joshua, you can talk to us about this, the reasons why the youth abuse drugs, and yet they know the dangers very well.
Well, as we look into the reasons, we also need to look at the factors. The factors, some of these addicts, and it's not because some of them is not because of their own wish or their own making, but because of the surrounding circumstances or because of several factors. For example, family also contributes. There are people who are victims because of family, biological family. The parents are victims, and because of that, the children also become addicts. They also abuse the drugs because that's what my father does. That's what my mother does. So family also contributes to this. Age. It's another important factor in this regard. The young person's at the age of 15 to 20, 28, even nowadays it is as early as 13s, they're exposed to alcohol and they are so much eager. Age drives them. According to the current research of National Institute of Mental Health suggests that person's brain is fully developed until they are in their 20s. In other words, between the 20s and the teens, their brain is adventurous. They want to test how does alcohol taste. Age drives them so much. Like I said about craving, their brain wants to know a lot. It craves, like, I need to see this, I need to taste this. They test once, they're like, but I didn't get drunk. All those items, the surroundings, some of them have been brought this problem or to this reality because of the surrounding, the communities they have been grown into. No one wants to tell them how bad these things are because they have seen their fellows do them and they are surviving. So the surrounding has a very big influence to this. So therefore, when you look into the reasons why someone to feel relieved from depression, because they will give them a different feeling, they will have to feel high if they've taken alcohol. Some of them want to take their stress away. If I take my alcohol and I'm drunk, I will be in another world. I won't feel about anything. Some, because of peer pressure, because so and so does it. Anyway, I take it because my friend brings it to my house. Maybe because my place is convenient for my friends to meet in. We just take because we are many. Some of them take because they want to feel fame, like looking at other examples in the community. Quite a number of reasons. Others use them as stress relievers. Others use them as items to enhance themselves, to motivate themselves. So there are quite a number of reasons. Back to you, Irene.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Joshua, for your submissions. And Olive, what do you have to say about this?
Thank you, Irene. To add to the reasons why our youth go ahead and use drugs, we've talked of peer pressure. Yeah, for peer pressure, I could link into the misinformation. You have a situation whereby people get inaccurate information about drugs and alcohol. Yeah. someone tells the friend, oh, it's quite good, you're missing out. The message they are sending out to each other, yeah, it's something, you're missing out on something good. So me as a friend who is having this other friend who makes the situation look attractive, I tell myself, I'm missing out. So I try it. As I try it, I probably get addicted to it. Yeah. So misinformation is one of those reasons as well. Then lack of confidence. Yeah. The lack of confidence, self-esteem also pushes our youth to use drugs. Yeah. Because you find that one tells you, when I take drugs, when I get drunk, I get to do something I wouldn't have done otherwise. Yeah? So this is an issue of lack of confidence. You could do this thing without the drugs, but because one time you took the drugs, probably you approached this lady you wanted to ask out, probably you took the drugs and read throughout the whole night. You think this is the confidence boost you've been searching for. So you, every time you try to do something, every time you try to achieve, probably study, you end up reverting back to that aspect of the drugs. Then during the week, Irene posted a quote by Eminem where he said that music, he felt like he could do a lot of music while not sober. Yeah, he felt like that was what was driving his talent. Yeah, so you find such issues, such lack of confidence. It all goes back to lack of confidence. Yeah, someone believes if I don't take this, I can't do any better. Then giving an example, you say we have friends we know who have been drug addicts. So we had one send in an article about his experience. Um, and his article, he talked about a situation whereby he was at a police station with some other friends, and the police officers checked everyone else to find out who is that person smelling these drugs, who is that person taking the drugs, but they missed him out. And you know the reason he was giving it? Because he was so confident. He's like, I stood in that police station quite confident. I believe they couldn't even think I'm someone who is taking the drugs. Yeah. So people revert to drugs, they revert to alcoholism as a sense of boosting their confidence as well. Yeah. Then another reason is boredom, more so during this time where we've had lockdown, but even before the lockdown, you find teenagers move around home. They don't settle down. School holidays, you find them around town. So boredom. Some people feel they need to be active. So in the action of seeking out these partnerships, these friends, you find that they end up uh, gaining others, so say meeting up with fellow other youth. They're like taking drugs, hanging out and whatnot. Yeah. So all of a sudden this becomes the band of friends the person moves with. Yeah. So some refer to it as boredom. Yeah. Then popular media, I think Joshua talked about this when he talked about the songs and whatnot. Yeah, you find that when it comes to media plays a big part in most of the issues going around. Like you find songs and movies actually making the drugs and the alcoholism look so cool. So our youth find this as something to take up as well. Yeah. And then other people, Joshua also mentioned it, whereby you look at the parents are drinking. Yeah, your fellow friends are drinking, your fellow friends are doing drugs. Yeah, then you take this as part of the teenage experience. Yeah, I think those are some of the reasons I can give. Back to you, Irene.
Thank you so much, Olive.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And it is true, some people do drugs, actually the youth, mostly out of curiosity. They want to know, how does it taste, how can I feel, they want to discover, they want to do more of the discoveries. And then also there is peer pressure.
Yeah.
If my friend is doing this, then I can also do that. But then again, there are those who actually abuse drugs because of stress. Maybe they've lost a loved one, and we all tend to have different ways. Like, we are not all strong. Some sometimes we find it so hard, like maybe a brother can deal with it, but then a sister cannot deal with it. And most cases when we've lost loved ones, everyone seems to be in their cocoon. Everyone is grieving, and maybe we forget about our, each other. We can't look out for each other, and before you know it, someone cannot take it anymore, and they end up into the drug abuse situation. Then also there is what Olive said about the self-esteem. Someone knows if I'm doing drugs, maybe I will do things that I don't think I can be able to do. Maybe when they are going to sit for an exam, some people think they have to first do the drug and then maybe they can sit for an exam, which is not always true, I believe. So also as parents, I think we have a very, very big role to play when it comes to this. If you cannot look at your child and you get to know that something is wrong, then you will find out when it is really too late and when they've become addicts. And that is what we're actually trying to avoid by bringing up this topic. For those who are just joining us, thank you so much. It's the Real Chat with Mrs. Mutekanga, and we are glad to have you on board. Then also, Olive, what could be what can a parent do in case they actually find out beyond doubt, or if that their daughter or their son is doing drugs? And when we talk of drugs, actually we mean everything that can that the tobacco, the alcohol, the marijuana, all that. We bring all that under drug abuse. So what can a parent do in case that their child admits they are actually doing drugs? What would you advise a parent?
Irene, allow me. I'm trying to look at the comments. It seems McDonald says the question is how to do these drugs get to the young generation? What role has the government or community taken towards fighting the distribution and use? Now, like here in the States, there are some sicknesses that can be treated by use of weed. So are you going to call that drug abuse? So addressing McDonald issue, um, there are situations whereby the my battery there are situations whereby the drugs are needed to do what? To treat the disease. Yeah. Now when you look at a situation of cancer, yeah, the situation of cancer, they can tell you you might need to use the weed for some of these treatments. Yeah. That is not drug abuse. If you get a prescription for the drug, that's not drug abuse. Yeah, the abuse comes in when you misuse the prescription you've been given. Yeah, um, Irene, am I audible? Yeah,
Yes, you are.
yeah. The abuse comes in when you misuse the prescription you've been given. You get. Yeah, so I'm trying to address one of the issues which is being raised in the comments. Yeah, so drug abuse and drug addiction, these are very different issues. Yeah, there are some drugs, some people abuse simple painkillers, like Wycliffe talked about the morphine. Yeah, some people are given these painkillers. Yeah, but the doctor gives you a prescription. Yeah, I'm not saying that that is still a drug. But at the end of it all, how do you use these painkillers? If they are misused, then it becomes drug abuse. Yeah. Then if it's a continuous use, if it's a continuous abuse, then it becomes an addiction. Yeah. So let's not say some drugs it's not abuse. Yeah, some it becomes a habit, then it gets to the addiction. Certain sicknesses, yet yes, they can be treated by some drugs, but if you misuse the prescription given, then you become someone who is abusing the drug. Then you're talking about what role has a government or community taken towards fighting the distribution and use. I think this we can look at it at the end as we are submitting the solutions and the roles our various parties can do. I think Irene, you could note that. I would love to move to the question at hand where you said what can our parents do? Yeah, our parents can confront these teenagers. We can confront our children. These are our children, they're not strangers. But as we confront them, it's a dialogue. Let's talk to them. We are not blaming. We are approaching to talk and see how we can get them help. Yeah. So if your child admits that I'm actually a drug addict, I'm misusing the drugs, yeah, find a way. Then the next step, how do we get them help? Probably find out how did it start so that you don't go back to the same mistakes. Yeah. But moving forward, how do we get them help? Yeah? You have counseling, we have therapists, we have psychiatrists. Yeah. So we can use these avenues. Our parents, you can, if you can't talk to your child, and if the problem is beyond your control, you can seek professional help. Counseling is always something I believe is good for everyone. Yeah, you can talk to someone for help. Yeah, then we have these teenagers who are still not who are still in denial. You can do that check, like I said, bring in the drug tests, yeah, and confirm. So if you confirm, then you move forward. How do I get help for my child? Talk to them, seek help. I believe these are good avenues. These are good starting points. Yeah. Thank you. Back to you, Irene.
Thank you so much, Olive. Thank you so much for that and for your submissions. And true, I'm seeing a comment from Jackie. Jackie, thank you so much for joining in and for giving in your submission. And it is true, some of the youth they fail to get that sense of belonging, and then they become and of course us as parents, we've become so busy, very very busy, in that we don't have time. And of course when that happens, then that's when you find the children are actually joining those bad groups. So we have to pay attention and be there for these kids when they need us. Okay, thank you once again for those who are joining us. Keep the submissions coming in the comment boxes. And Wycliffe, we've been talking about what a parent can do in case their child admits that they are doing drugs. You can take it up, Wycliffe. Kindly unmute your microphone first.
So can you hear me now, Irene?
Yes, I can hear you.
So I think for every parent whose child admits that they are using drugs, those parents are lucky. There are some children who use drugs, but they never want to show that they are using them. Yeah. And that's very hard because you'll never find any intervention, you'll never get the ways of drugs. That's quite amazing. Yeah, it's a step that you'll have taken. Now if they show you that they are using drugs, we have rehabilitations, but even before thinking about rehabilitations, you as the parent has something to do. It's all, yeah, you talk to them freely and friendly, because if you're this harsh parent who likes beating up children, and perhaps there could be something wrong going on with them and they never tell you. So it is very important that you talk to them casually and freely, and then you create that good environment, that good rapport where there is privacy, and then you talk to them smartly. One, you need to show them that they have value as a parent. You talk to the child that they are important. This is what they will be in future. You know, trying to show them the good life of a drug-free situation. And then you need to also measure their abilities.
We seem to have lost Wycliffe. Joshua, you can come in as we wait for Wycliffe's network to become stable.
Okay, thank you, Irene. Well, what the parents can do, first of all, they need to understand the role played by parents themselves. The father's role in parenting creates the child vision, as many may look up to them. Your children grow looking up to you. In cases where the parents are not doing well, there's a likelihood that the children will grow in the same footsteps. Most of the Ghanaian children only have biological fathers, most of them, but lack functional fathers who can dedicate themselves in loving, disciplining, and training and preparing them for a better future. There are some parents who don't know what their children like. Some parents don't know what their children do when they're out of home. Don't know even their friends. Don't even what is my child capable of. They even don't know. So it begins with that love, that care, that attention that comes in. Many children witness violence in their homes, which injures their mind and soul. And at the end of the day, they have been lured into drug misuse. Without responsible families, violence and unemployment, drug addictions will continue to damage the soul of these youth. They keep looking at these things and eventually they adopt them. So parents have to be examples. One of the biggest roles you need to do is to set examples. Don't set a quarrel before your children. They will end up doing them. Don't smoke. Don't take marijuana before your children. They will end up doing it as a family business. And because they know my father does it, so I can do it. It is okay. They think what you do is okay. So they need to set an example for these children. And also, they need to get engaged in activities that the children are doing. There are children or youth who are involved in useful activities. They go for sports, they go for debate. But in those activities, that's where these drugs are smuggled. These drugs are being smuggled in those groups. He has gone for a sports activity. He comes back with a cassette. At night, he takes it. He gives a brother like that. Another person transports it, like in discussions. They have gone for holiday park studying. They are carrying these things, these drugs, and you need to be involved. And I know how they are dealing with their peers. Ask them questions. What do they think about drug abuse? What do they think are drugs? Know their opinion in different areas. Their opinion when it comes to drugs. What do they say? Do they say they are good or bad? Why do they say they are good? All these things you have to interact with your children. So family or parents have a big role to play. And also to add on, in cases where you have discovered that your child is a drug addict, I would encourage you follow up the rehabilitation processes or procedures. It could be in inward rehab or outward rehab. It could be through counseling, so that your child is brought up to understand that this problem, because in the rehab there are quite a number of them, he will know he's dealing with a problem where he is not alone, and it is the process, and they're in the process of them recovering. So it is always good, and I encourage the parents to take it up and encourage their children to joining those rehab centers. They can help. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joshua, for that submission. Wycliffe, you can unmute and complete your submission if your network has stabilized. Unmute. Wycliffe, kindly unmute your microphone. Yes, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
It is unmuted.
Mhm.
Irene
I can hear you. I can hear you, Wycliffe.
can, yeah.
Yes, please.
So I was finalizing with my submission. If you as a parent have failed to find something good for your child to help them out of drug addiction, then just like Joshua said, the parent should definitely go for rehabilitation. But it's always important that you as a parent, the primary caretaker of the child, do something about it, and then later on you can go for rehab if you have failed completely. Back to you, Irene.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Wycliffe and Joshua, for your submissions. And I think we are almost coming to the end. And first of all, I want to thank Sharon. Sharon, thank you for your submissions. And what Sharon is saying is true. Parents, if you're doing drugs, don't do drugs in front of your children. Because if you do that, you'll be encouraging them to actually do the same. So parents, please try so hard and make sure you don't do your drugs in front of your children. Please, it is a request, and you don't want to see your child as an addict. Then again, thank you so much for all those who have joined us. And I see Olive is back, and we are going to be giving our concluding remarks. Everyone will get a few minutes. You give in your concluding remarks, and as you do you give us your concluding remarks. Remember to talk about the role of the community and the government in stopping this or reducing the numbers of the youth abusing drugs. And also, another thing I wanted to talk about is most of the times we find that children, when these young ones start doing drugs, they try to distance themselves from their parents. They don't want to talk to their parents, they don't want to listen to them, and it becomes very hard for the parents to actually do something. So, what would you advise this parent is who is in this kind of situation? They may be aware their children are actually doing drugs. They want to help, but their children are not actually allowing them to do so. How would you advise such a parent? As we conclude, please. Starting with you, Olive.
You said the question is they want to help, but their children are not allowing them.
Yes, the children are distancing themselves. They actually don't even want to talk to their parents.
Hmm.
And yet the
Okay.
parents are willing to help.
Yeah, that's why I said counseling is a good alternative. You find there are some things the parent can't talk about, or the child may not be able to approach the parent about it, but there is someone else they can approach. Yeah. So in such a situation, seek out that other person whom you can approach. Yeah. Yeah. So I hope that's okay. Then I've seen another comment where they are saying, what of those who can't afford rehab? During rehab is okay, but how about how many parents can afford paying for it? Yeah. So there are those who can afford. Yeah. But those who can't afford, we try to, they say preventive is better than curative. Yeah. So if you can prevent a situation, let's try and prevent it. But if it reaches situations where it's beyond, that's when we seek out those other alternatives. So if I can't afford rehab, I can go to church. Yeah, we have church leaders who can do counseling sessions. Yeah. Now, like boarding schools, they bring in people to do talks. You get, even normal schools, they don't have to be boarding schools. Yeah. So for the sake of those who can't afford, we have alternatives. And even rehab itself might not work for some people. It can work for a few months, but the person relapses. So such a person might even need a mental health specialist. Yeah, probably the same person who sent in an article told us that he relapsed when he left rehab and went home, but soon realized being around family, he's just wasting away his life. Yeah, so he came to his senses. He came to his senses by his own self, like the commitment the family members were giving him, the love, the support. Yeah, so very many factors help out. It doesn't have to be rehab alone. Yeah, because you look at situations whereby in boarding schools, the students carry these drugs, they smuggle them in these circuits, these the can I say waraji, that those small, those cheap ones, they can be carried into school. So we're suggesting probably this is when the community comes in, the school leaders come in, yeah, by checking these students as they report to school. Yeah. Then another aspect of we have in Uganda, bars are everywhere and they are open almost all the time. You find people seated around anywhere. They just sit around and drink. They sit around, take their smoke. They smoke. They take their weed. Yeah. So this is an aspect, of course, which has to be addressed by the government, by our community leaders. But it's not something which can we can do away with it in just 1 minute. These are gradual processes to be adopted. Yeah, you can't just ban all these businesses in once, like once. Mm? Because at the end of it all, someone else is also gaining from this, making a living out of this. So how does our government address these issues? Yeah? They come up with laws to regulate. That's why you see they do not drink below 18. Yeah, don't drink and drive. Yeah. So we come up with these laws to address these issues. Um, then another issue which keeps coming up, like people advocate for the government to ban some of these cheap liquor and all that. But remember, however much the laws come up, this is not something which can be done in an instant. These are gradual processes. People have made roots into these businesses. Yeah. So how we add the laws have to come up, but they have to be treated strictly. Yeah. Then you see situations whereby our community has now become as a route for smuggling these drugs. Yeah? And the repercussions, the punishments are not strong enough. So our government can come in by strengthening these punishments. Some countries, it's life imprisonment when they find you smuggling drugs. So probably we need to adopt the same. Yeah. But these are all processes. It's not something we can do just once. What we can do the little we can to help. So my parting shot would be ask for help. We are parents, but this is not something we were born into. Yeah? We are youth, but these are stages we are experiencing. We are adults, but this some of us is our first time becoming adults. Yeah, so these are challenges in life. Talk to someone, talk to a friend, but also seek help. There are very many avenues to seek help from. Yeah, maybe to conclude, I could say, as Carol at Hera Cancer Foundation, we do have a free counseling program. You can get in touch with us over the weekend, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Join in and chat with our counselors. Let's try and help each other out. Let's work together to help each other out. Thank you so much, Irene.
Thank you so much, Olive, for your concluding remarks. And Wycliffe, kindly give us your concluding remarks.
Irene Wycliffe, the
Please
microphone is.
unmute unmute your microphone, Wycliffe.
You hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
finally, whereas we recommend rehabilitation centers, or maybe we recommend other people to talk to these children on behalf of their parents, these children still remain own. So we should always take up a step to make sure we engage these children. And the reason why these children could distance themselves away from their own parents is, if you find that every time this child makes a very meager or small mistake and you hit them like really so hard, the next time they do some simple or other mistake, or perhaps they use drugs, they will is first eliminate all those other extra factors that would force the child to run away or distance themselves from you. And the moment you try to eliminate those factors, you no longer beat them, you no longer yell or
Wycliffe, your mic seems to be muted. Wycliffe, are you there? We can't seem to hear you. We can't seem to hear you, Wycliffe.
Finally, I was saying,
Yes, please, Wycliffe.
I was up to now.
Yeah, we can now hear you. I think we will get back to you, Wycliffe. Let's get Joshua's concluding remarks. Joshua, kindly unmute and you give your concluding remarks.
Yes, Irene, I was saying that as we try to conclude this, we need to remember that there is no such as a one-fit-all size in approaching and in preventing and in trying to recover from all this drug addiction and drug abuse. We need to come up with various methods, various ways. There's no one single method that we can do, but however, according to Dr. Toshira Nyanabanji, one of the psychiatric doctors in Utabika, she says treatment of a drug addict is so hard and expensive compared to 20 people who are mad, who are psychiatric. An addict is so hard to treat. And therefore, the best thing we can do is advocate for preventions, not for the cure. And in this way, the government has to come up or else the youth are wasting. The government has to come up and be strict on its laws that it imposes, because most of the work against drug abuse and addiction is done by the NGOs. Government is doing less than it is supposed to be doing. Yes, it may be having interventions, they may be already having programs that are running, but it is less compared to what is required of it. So most of the work is done by the NGOs. It needs to empower these NGOs which are coming in and also be involved in this, do advocacy, so that youth are sensitized against these things before they are brought into them. And the parents also need to know the perspective of the children on these particular drugs. What does my son know about this? Before the society teaches them another way or another meaning, we need to come up as parents and also take over our responsibility. Also, we need to know that the journey is not easy for drug addicts. There are some who have come up openly and have been criticized by the public. It rushes to judge, to put a judgment on them, and they have gone back into these things. And they would prefer to have kept quiet than coming up on public and say this is wrong. And some are struggling with these addictions and these drugs. Some are doing them in secret because they don't want the public to know them. And they are dying slowly by slowly. We need to embrace some people like artists who have come up and said, this is wrong. I was an addict, but now I'm okay. I was abusing drugs, but I was able to overcome them. And these people can be given a platform on how best they can help other youth to come out of this problem of drug addiction and drug abuse. We need to give a platform. There are quite a number of artists who have come up and who are well known and they have a following. There are people who began drugs, there are youth who began drugs because of what they saw these artists doing. And now these artists have come up and said, no, I'm tired of this. They have put an end to addiction. They also need to come up and empower, be given a platform and tell the youth that it's not about this. There's another way we can overcome this. So, and one of the first steps to recovery is or to prevention or to cure for those who are already victims is them acknowledging that they are really struggling with this. Show them the better side than what they think is the right side. Let them first acknowledge and have that willingness to come out of it. And most of this work can be done by counselors. And most of these counseling facility centers, they need facilitation to run these programs. Because there's so many youth out there on the street and are affected by this. They need to move in schools, do public care campaigns and communicate all these things, have a one-on-one with the youth and make sure that there is a great impact on the ground. So, and all this can be empowered by the government, by the NGOs, so that we have a solution or we put an end to this problem. Thank you. Back to you, Eileen.
Thank you so much for the concluding remarks. And to conclude, first of all, I want to say thank you for everyone who has joined us today. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for giving in your submissions. And to conclude, this goes to parents. Pay attention to your kids. Pay attention to your children. Don't do your drugs in front of your children. Then again, to the youth out there, at the end of the day, it is your life. The friends you make, the things you do will come to affect you later in life. Please take responsibility of your life. If something doesn't feel okay, if you feel you're depressed, if you feel something is not going on well, reach out to someone. Talk to your parents. If you cannot talk to your parents, talk to your counselors. There are counselors everywhere. Talk to the senior woman. Talk to the teacher in charge of the boys in school. Please, please, please. At the end of the day, it is your life. So to the youth who are watching us right now, your parents are there to guide you. And if you go astray and they've done what they can do, at the end of the day, you are making a mess of your life. And to the parents, pay attention, close attention to your children, because at the end of the day, they are your responsibility. To the neighbors out there, don't see your neighbor's child go astray and you keep quiet, because today it might be your neighbor's child and tomorrow it might be yours. Let us all take responsibility, because this affects us all at the end of the day. Thank you so much for joining in. Make good use of the counseling sessions they've told you about on the Carol Atwire Cancer Foundation page on Facebook. And till next time, God bless.